All right, welcome everyone to this edition of Map Time Davis. My name is Michelle Tobias. I am the Geospatial Data Specialist at UC Davis Data Lab. And I'm really excited for our very first Map Time session of winter quarter for 2023. Today we have Joshua Hori from, oh shoot, I moved my notes. There we go. So Joshua is the accessible technologies coordinator for UC Davis. And he is going to talk to us today about the UC Davis Tactile map, the new version of it. And also, I think he can probably answer some of our questions about accessibility with mapping data and things like that. So I am super excited to see this presentation because I am a super visual person and I am really in need of learning how to work with things in a less visual way for folks, maybe to communicate better. So I'm really excited for this. So with that, I will let Joshua take over.
Thank you, Michelle, for inviting me to present on this. It's one of my favorite things to actually present on right now because it's still kind of new. So this is the UC Davis TAC map, which is known as the Tactile Audio Campus Map, so abbreviated to TAC map. Now, once again, my name is Joshua Hori. I'm the Accessible Technology Coordinator for Information Educational Technology, as well as the Academic Technology Services. So I help accommodate staff and faculty with different types of assistive technologies so they can continue doing their work. I started this position right around during the middle of COVID, but before then I had spent the previous almost 18 years over at the SDC helping to accommodate students with disabilities with different types of technologies to make course material more accessible. So now, just doing a quick outline of this presentation, we're needed a universal campus map for UC Davis precedent. Some of the things that we were looking at. So we're going to look at the Manhattanville College map with a LiveScribe smart pen. We're going to talk about our student designers here at UC Davis that helped us create this map. And then we ran into a snag where the smart pens were discontinued and how we continued with an Android tablet. Then we're going to talk about producing the tactile skins, shaping and scripting, and the way that we can maintain the map. Creating a network of TAC maps is a potential possibility inside of here as well, and other audio tactile maps. So we needed kind of a big universal campus map for UC Davis, and it's kind of difficult to describe. It's very, very complex because of the size of the campus. As you can see, it's huge. So on here, I've got an overhead shot of a Google map of the whole campus with I-80 on the right-hand side and 113 on the left-hand side. And really, there's a lot more here shown than just the campus. There's also the surrounding neighborhoods. So back in 2016, I started doing research of different types of campus maps that were accessible to the visually impaired. I found some of our older maps, which are basically hand-drawn, brailled content of the whole map, which it was interesting to view, but it no longer mapped all the buildings that we had on here. It was from like the 80s, early 80s, late 70s. And one of the ones that we looked up was, I had been working with this company called Touch Graphics, who creates a lot of tactile graphics and integrates it with the LiveScribe smart pen. So there wasn't a lot of braille on there, wasn't very busy, and you could make a lot more information in audio and make it available to our blind users than you could with braille. So on here, I have a video of the map, and I'm just going to play it. So this map is 3D printed. The buildings actually have a feel to it, as well as the roads. They have a tactile feel to it. And the walkways also have a different kind of feel to it. So I'm going over this and you can kind of see the raising in the buildings. And then you see that you can repeat content. You can increase the volume. And all of this is really interactive with the LiveScribe smart pen, which we saw in there. Also showing a legend on here.
classrooms, highest X theater, music department, faculty offices, ground floor, practice rooms, first floor, classrooms and faculty office, main entrance from outside, links to Brown Music Building. The McCormick Quad.
So as you can see, there is actually different layers of audio that we can actually add for each building. I do believe it was up to 4 layers of audio, one to identify it, one to announce what was on the first floor, second floor, and third floor. So this really kind of opened up the door for bringing awareness of what can be inside of buildings. Departments can even be listed and so forth. So this was one of the ones that I was like, this is amazing. We need to create it for UC Davis for our students, but not just for our students. Our tour guides could use this. Guests coming to campus could use this. We can actually just, well, make it a universal design thing, because not only is it very, very tactile, but it's also visual and very interactive. I really like that we could add more details in audio that we couldn't do in Braille. So we started a class over here at UC Davis where we got funding from Student Affairs, and I teamed up with Susan Verba, who was part of my DIAC committee, in order to host a class where we had some designing students working with some low vision students to get feedback of the content they were designing. So on here, there's a universal design, please touch, design an interactive tactile map for all, where we're kind of designing what the course would be for. On the right-hand side, we have the map, which was recreated by our students in InDesign. And what they did was they basically did an overlay over Google Maps and just retraced everything out according to the students. And on the bottom underneath the map, we used a device called Pictures in a Flash, which is this device right here. I like to call it an electronic toaster. And what it does is you print black ink on thermal paper, and you put it through this, and it heats up one side of the paper. And anything that's black will be raised. Anything with colors is just left alone. So this gave us the ability to provide tactile feedback of walkways, roads, and buildings. And we were using our low vision students to make sure that it wasn't too busy. They could feel the difference between the walkways, roads, as well as buildings, as well as tell that there's a space in between the buildings, and just generally telling the different buildings on our campus. So one of the enemies is tactile clutter. So like I was saying before, we're trying to make sure that everything wasn't too close. And this is actually an example of, I do believe, the Swiss mountains. And you can see that they've got a lot of railroads on here, as well as, I do believe, their valleys. And then they label just about everything. But these things are very, very difficult for blind users to interact with, because you can't really tell the difference of when something starts and stops. Like some of these dots in here they seem like they're supposed to be part of the actual background. If you're feeling it visually, you'll see that there's a difference. But when you feel it, it all kind of melds together. So this is one of the things that we're trying to prevent on our campus. So Braille labels versus auditory labels. So on here, we have a T3 tactile tablet, which is a classroom learning aid for visually disabled users, which allows users to, allows offices to create tactile maps really quickly that blind users can interact with. So these are one of the tools that we can actually use. And I actually have something like this with touch graphics, but I had a chemistry table that it had all the chemical labels on it, and we used the LiveScribe Smart Pen in order to read each one of the chemistry elements. And it had up to 25 different layers for each one of the chemical elements listed. But on here, tactile audio maps are less cluttered. There's nothing really to feel, but if you touch it with a LiveScribe Smart Pen, you can add so much detail there. that we couldn't put in there with a Braille because of the limitations of size. So now we ended up switching from the Smart Pen to a tablet because, well, right at the beginning of COVID, LiveScribe decided to discontinue all of their LiveScribe Smart Pens. That gave a lot of us heartache because we're actually using it to accommodate some of our students. They're great tools to accommodate for note taking. But when the LiveScribe Echo Smart Pen became unavailable, we were forced to reconsider the factor of the map. Instead of a portable map that you could use with the LiveScribe Smart Pen, we ended up going with a much larger fixed position map that was placed on the 43-inch Android digital signage touchscreen, which made it very interactive. So producing the tactile skin, as you can see on the right here, we have a direct color system 7200Z, which can go up to 24 by 48 inches. It's a 48-inch flatbed UV printer. So to add raised lines, textures, and braille to the touchscreen surface, the designers UV printed a translucent tactile skin that was then laminated to the touch screen glass. So finger touches can still be reliably sensed through the thickness of this tactile skin. And first, the next was done UV printing for files in sequence. Pass 1 is a clear dimensional ink for all tactile features. You can kind of see all the buildings, the grass, the roads, and the walkway that have been placed on here, as well as some of the more visited buildings with the braille that would be done, and the legend up here in the top left-hand corner. So pass 2 was a clear dimensional ink to add emphasis for the most important tactile features, building, roads, and symbols. So as you notice, you won't see the braille on this portion of it, but you will see the Cue to Creek over here, though, which is a little bit different than the rest of them. And then a white print underlayer for selective opacity helps with making the colors pop, improving legibility for some low vision users. So universal design, we're trying to make it so that way everybody could interact with it. And you'll notice that in the bottom left-hand corner over here is a big blue box. That's not part of the map. That's actually where our captions appear. So everything that's said inside of this map will appear in the left-hand corner with captions, which we didn't have a way of doing it with the LiveScribe Smart Pen. So this was actually a great update to be able to do. So pass 4 is the CMYK visual graphics, which are printed as a last step, overlaying all 3 prior print passes. So as you can see, this is where the building labels come into effect, as well as just making everything stand out. So we have parking actually has a different area. You can see the grass really pops out. Barely see the tennis courts up here, but you can definitely see the track. Then over on the left-hand side, you'll see that we have Gateway District, Health Science District, Pavilion District, Quad District, and these actually provide you with audio feedback wayfinding on the map. So you can touch on these areas right here, and a little audio signal, kind of like a hot, cold hot game, will start. And what it does is you'll start off with a low pitch, and the pitch gets higher as you get closer to the building that you want to find. So the TAC map allows users to explore with both hands in silence. So this gives them the ability to really just feel around and see how big the campus is, and request descriptions of buildings, roads, athletic fields, bus stops, etc. by pressing on them with one finger for 1 second. So we'll do a play button right over here. So on here, this is the map itself. You can see there's braille next to each one of these labels on here. And then there's the caption area in the bottom left-hand corner.
Memorial Union. Freeborn. Hart. Walker. Boehner.
Now you can see the captions appearing on the left-hand side.
Mondavi Center. Touch the map to the right to be guided to Mondavi Center.
Now it's playing a little audio pitch as they move their finger closer to the location they're trying to find.
This is Mondavi Center. Tap for more information. Walking path. Huda Creek. Tennis courts. Grass. Running track. The domes. Farms. Colleges as LaRue. Outdoor Adventure School.
And if you notice, the Edwards facility with it was put on there because that was brand spanking new on our campus. So we just got this at the beginning of summer. So that's like a really quick demonstration of what the map is actually capable of. So the directory of places. So a list of important places at UC Davis appears on the left-hand side of the TAC map. Users may press any of that item or may press any item in that list and basically be guided over to it, which we heard in the video in the previous slide. So it's kind of helpful for those who are blind to help find where they want to go on the campus. So we also have the ability to for shaping and scripting. So the shaping is the process of creating touch responsive zones inside of the tactile map surface, while scripting entails writing messages that users hear or read in response to the map touches. And on the right-hand side, we actually have a screenshot of the different layers of this campus map, where you can see we can add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different layers to the campus map. And as you can see, the first layer is filled with what the name of the building or place location is. We can add different layers of audio departments, what rooms are there, and so forth into each one of these. I want to eventually get QR codes in the image J column in order to facilitate ways of adding it to our phones to give us ways of finding our way to different types of buildings. And this is available through Google Sheets. So we can actually share this, that way we can update this, although I think we want to be kind of very careful with who we share these with. So layers of information provided by the TAC map should be organized in 3 categories. Layer 1 is a place name, layer 2 being the description, layer 3 being the wayfinding. Users can drill down through the audio layers by tapping, and really this is what they're suggesting. We can put in whatever we want to inside of here. We are not limited to what they are actually stating. So I see that there's 2 kids. Is that the same kind of tech as those interactive kids books where they can have the pen? You know what? That is exactly where the LiveScribe Smart Pen came from. So what were they called? I am drawing a link, but yes, they used the engineers who built those talking books actually submitted this to that team, and they decided it wasn't something that they wanted to move forward with, and they told them they could take it and make their own company with it. LiveScribe's still around. So do you page through the directory by changing the region or setting? Is there instructions button to read all the regions? Actually, just by tapping on it will give you the different regions. So tapping once will give you the first layer, tapping twice or tapping a second time will give you the second layer. Tapping again will give you the third layer, and so forth. And tapping again, if there's no layers after that, it starts from the very beginning again. So it's
Excuse
as
me, Josh,
simple as
can
can
I
be.
ask a question? This is Naomi.
Yes.
What I meant, I was looking at the person navigating with their finger on that map. And I know the campus pretty well, but I can imagine like kind of getting off into one corner and not knowing how to get back to the menu to look for a building that wasn't on the list, or some other sort of instruction that lets you go through like the quad district and I don't remember what the other ones are called, like how to get to all the lists of things so that it can use that tone to point you to the next direction. Like it's a huge map. So can you talk a little bit about some of that navigating?
Oh, actually, I'll come up to that here in a second. Because I have another thing that I look at for OEM, which ONM, which is orientation and mobility, which is something that's usually provided to our blind and low vision users to help them with navigation around our campus. So that is actually something that's supplied by DOR and usually is provided to each one of the students as they're coming to campus, like usually a week before, and they help them find places of interest to help them with their awareness of where they are on campus. So updating the TAC map. As new buildings are added and old ones are removed, it will become necessary to update the map, which we can actually be done very somewhat quickly and ordering new items. So will this be able to, will this be something that we can actually do by reskinning our LCD? Very, very possible. So, and the great thing is that we can update the information using the sheets, Google Sheets, to update whatever's inside of the building, which makes it really nice, easy to use. And we don't have to contact the vendor to update it every time a department moves. So adding of 3D buildings, in some cases, it is desirable to show buildings in full 3D. Touch Graphics has developed methods for placing conductive models on touchscreens to extend the touch responsiveness to the third dimension. As you can see on here, we actually have some really big buildings that are actually on display on one of these 43-inch TVs. It's mounted on a rolling cart because these TVs get very heavy. I have had to carry it from the MU to the Student Community Center and was not happy about it. That thing gets heavy. So adding 3D buildings. So this is a Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, talking campus model, where they actually have much, much taller buildings on there. This is not something I would want for maybe our campus because most of our buildings are about the same size. So I feel like the one that we actually have is the best for our needs. But if you have, you're in a metropolitan area where sizes are different, buildings are different, maybe Berkeley, because they have to build up instead of out, this might be one of the preferred formats for them. There's also creating a network of TAC maps. So there will be the capability, or there is the capability of adding these maps to different buildings with wayfinding inside of them. So we can basically bring this with 2 different areas of different departments. I would love to get one for maybe the Death Star because that can be so fun to navigate. So National Mall tactile map, crypt of the US Capitol. So this is tactile maps of the Washington, as well as some other US Capitol areas. So they have ways individuals can interact with them. And I find that not only low vision and blind students interact with this, my autistic students really gravitate towards these kind of things. And they're touching everything and listening to it play back and smiling and just, whoa, I've never seen my autistic students so happy interacting with something like this. So here's the Alcatraz Island Talking Touch model, which is another one that was made to give a different idea of how these maps could be used. So this one actually has a demonstration over here that we can do where We have Alcatraz talking model, and a visitor checks out the model. It's actually a blind kid with a friend that's helping him guide his hand around the model.
Alcatraz Island Touch Model, San Francisco, California.
That's Steve Landau, the guy who actually designed these maps.
You touch this model. As you do, you will hear the names of each part in short description. You may tap the same part again to hear in-depth information. Navigation operated by the U.S. Coast Guard is at the Island Summit, directly south of the South and west of the Warm. The first White House on the West Coast was built on Alcatraz. This White House was completed in 1834 to guide maritime activity on the bay during the Gulf War. The Congress House is a 2,000 building, shipped for the East Coast and Clippers.
So as you can see, you can store a lot of details inside of these maps. So, but we don't just have that. I also have a Google Map, accessible version of our Google Maps, which requires SAS Graphics Accelerator to be installed, where I have marked areas of interest for OEM specialists to give some training to our blind and low vision students, even though they may not be aware of our campus. So on here, I have an image of Google Maps where I have listed areas like the Welcome Center, Art Pavilion, our Cal building, which houses Occupational Health and the Student with Disability Center, Dutton Hall, Educational Opportunity, MU, Mondavi Center. As you can see, I did a lot of different areas. And then I basically made this available so that way blind or low vision users can still access this electronically on their devices. You will need the SAS Graphics Accelerator, which is a Chrome plugin for you to be able to view all of this. You can go to mymaps.google.com in order to make your own map. And if you wanted to access my map, it's at http://bit.ly/3R55 This will get you over into my map, which I have publicly available. I actually have more complex details for the rest of the campus, but this one I made specifically for O&M specialists. And well, if you want more information on the maps, or you can send information over to info@touchgraphics.com, or you can reach out to me and I can definitely give you some more information on that. Do we have any questions?
So I just want to mention if folks want to unmute and talk, you're welcome to. Again, we are recording, but if you don't want to be recorded, you can also put your messages in the chat, and I'm happy to read those out for you, or I'm sure Joshua can do that too.
I'm used to reading them out loud. No.
Yeah, I figured. But I just want to give people options, depending on what they're comfortable with.
Did I answer your question?
Did you answer my question about the navigation?
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering when you have a map as big and with that many features, what tools the user has to have a list. I mean, a list of all the buildings on the campus, or maybe all the regions. Like, how do you help navigate once you have that many features?
Usually I let the students be aware of what buildings they need to know. So it can be overwhelming listing every building to our students. Most of our students only want to know the buildings that they have to go to and not anything else. We have had some students going way out into the, where is it? Over by Vet Med, but across the street. I'm forgetting the area's name, but it's really remote where we had a blind student going over to. But usually they get to know certain areas like the cross streets, maybe California and Russell. That's one that a lot of them get to know. Howard and Russell, Hutchinson, there and so forth. West Village. I'm not sure about West Village. West Village is pretty far away, isn't it? It's on the other side of the campus. But I do actually have the West Village inside of the that bit.ly link on there. I labeled everything over in, well, almost everything over in West Village. So there is that available, but even that can be quite well, expansive. So I do have different areas that I have listed on the Google Maps, and I can make it so that way I can just give them just a map just for the buildings that they need to get help them get around if that's what they need. But usually a lot of them get to know areas of interest like crossroads and certain buildings.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. I remember when I did my undergrad, I was in the physics geology building. I was at the coffee house, maybe Chem 194 and, you know, the quad, so the library. So that sounds, you know, a lot more manageable in terms of putting the information on the map and helping people get where they want to go.
You'd be surprised too. You can actually hear big trees next to you because it blocks sound out. So that can be actually used as an orientation of where you are. Because if you're aware of that, or maybe you're counting hydrants that you're hitting your walking stick against, or maybe passing, you're counting each one of the roundabouts that you're passing, you kind of know where you are using that.
Oh yeah, roundabouts are a great landmark. Are those posted on the map as a separate type of feature?
They're a circle. They're a small circle on the map, so you can definitely feel it. So can you explain the SAS Graphics Accelerator, what the SAS Graphics Accelerator does? Does it only work on Google Maps? Yes, it does. It only works on Google Maps. And what it does is it makes it so that way you can mark areas of interest on Google Maps and add layers and details to it. It is necessary. It will install in any Chromium-based web browser. So it'll install on Brave, Vivaldi, Edge, or Chrome. So whatever your favorite Chromium-based browser is, you can have it installed on there and work within mymaps.google.com. Yes. And I don't have to pay for that. So it's a really great starting point for creating a accessible digital map for our users to access at any time.
So Josh, quick question here. I think this is Matt here. I'm not sure how am I displaying here, but anyway, I think this is great material. But when I think of map reading, I think about kind of having something portable to take with you. So I remember traveling around Europe with my parents. We were just clinging to these maps and referencing back and forth. So to what extent are these devices like for small portable devices, or are they kind of large standalone pieces of equipment, which is what it sounds like?
Google Maps can be placed on your mobile device. Bad thing about it is it doesn't go onto your mobile phone. Actually, now that I think about it, because the SAS Graphics Accelerator doesn't get placed over there. You could do something like send yourself a message or an email so that it is on your phone, which is one of the reasons why I'm trying to put the QR codes inside of the Tactile map. That would allow users to scan the QR code with their phone and get the GPS coordinates directly on their phone instead of having to mentally be aware of where it is. I think what the Tactile map is it gives users a visual in their head of what the map will look like, because probably the number one comment that I get from all my blind users is, why does LaRue curve like this? I don't understand it.
Yeah, you know, that's what I was getting at with my question about the kind of continual reference and reinforcement, because I think what happens is that the person will take all this information and then create a representation in their mind that they're referring to, which is hard to do. So that seems like kind of the bottleneck in using this, kind of translating it mentally and then back into the real space. And I saw this myself when the seed scholars were using our folding maps. So I held it in front of them and they understood the map, but then translating it to the real world, I guess it's a problem in coordinate translation, like rotating up and turning. That was just completely baffling to them. So it seems like, you know, it's not just the type of representation, but how you make the change, which is really a barrier. I don't know if that's something that could be addressed or not.
Well, a lot of the times what I'll do is I'll first show my visually disabled users where the SDC is. They all know where the SDC is. And then in comparison to the building that they want to get to.
What is SDC?
I'm sorry, Student Disability
Oh,
Center.
yeah, got it. Okay.
So this is where our students come to get accommodations for their classes. And so they know where the SDC is. And if they know where the SDC is, they can tell how far it is by feeling around with both hands. So we can show them where the other building is and what streets it would take to get over there. Because remember, they could feel just the streets, and then they can also try and feel the walkways to see if there's shortcuts that they can take to get there, which they wouldn't have known if they're using some kind of a digital map.
Yeah.
They're going to stick to the streets and the roads that they're used to.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yes, the maps can be overwhelming, especially one as big as UC Davis. I mean, if we saw some of the other maps of other campuses, like that Manhattanville one, very, very small in comparison. And wow, UC Davis, that was a lot of effort to make accessible. But a lot of fun, because we really got to explore different ways to interact with it. We're trying to make something smaller, so that way it would be easier to carry or something like that. But we were thinking about going with those gaming boards that are hexagonal that you can place together to make into one big map. But that got kind of confusing when trying to piece it together. We would demonstrate it with maybe the pictures in a flash where we would cut little things to maybe make it easier to link them together. And it became difficult once you're mobile. And that's why we were thinking about the QR codes, because the QR codes would make it so that way you could take it wherever you want to. And we do have one blind student who's actually in ag, and they are working quite a bit in the ag field and GIS data. We have fun with GIS maps, I swear. But most of the times the way that we make it accessible for a blind student is we use clay. So we use clay to make different types of ranges and tactile maps for our blind students to interact with. And we're really wanting to partner up with data labs to make things more accessible too, because it just helps us out in the long run.
Yeah, and I think that Data Lab would in general be interested in that, but I know that Oliver and I are both interested in ways to help and get involved there. I can definitely see the sandbox being very useful for that kind of situation at the bare minimum, but I'm sure there's other things that we can do too.
Well, I was looking at the sandbox and even adjusting that with moon sand, so you can pack it down and you can still feel it and not mess up what other people have done. Could be a potential way to make some of that more accessible, as well as haptic and audio and tactile feedback of different types of devices. We've got haptic VR gloves, there's temperature sensing body suits, there's all sorts of things that are now available to make things more accessible across the board.
I think one of the coolest things about all of this stuff is not only does it make things more accessible, but it just seems like such fun to play with too. Like I think there's that, like the kid in us loves to think about getting our hands in the sand and playing with things, but also like the scientist in my brain is like, if that can communicate, all the better. But at the same time, I think it's just, it makes my brain happy to think about doing these things.
You should have saw all the colors we were actually printing on thermal paper and then submitting through the pictures in the flash, the electronic toaster, to get different types of feedback from our low vision users. And oh, my students were having fun just feeding that their printouts into it and feeling what came out on the other side, because it's instantaneous. You print it, you put it through there, and it's done and it's ready and it's tactile and you can feel it instantly.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say that one of our shortcomings with our folding maps at the library, while portable, is that they're just deadly dull. I mean, they're black and white line drawings and make no impression. And in contrast, I remember a separate activity with the Seed Scholars where we took them to the martial arts studio in the Arc for yoga or some activity. And I don't know if you've met Sophie Howarth in the second year.
Sophie, I think so.
Okay, I think you work mostly with the first year students.
I worked with the first years about last year.
Oh, right. Okay. So you're familiar. So anyway, we took her there and then Sophie ran in and was running all over the mats. You know, I've been in there lots of times and I didn't even notice, but she just loved the feeling of them. She was running up and down all over the floor. So I thought, okay, well, we have to translate that kind of enthusiasm to some of our other tools.
Well, I do know that they're all highly interested in 3D printing, tactile capabilities. They love playing with 3D printed content. So I've brought some of that to introduce to them. Right now, they're really loving ChatGPT and being able to summarize it as their favorite cartoon character. And we'll be playing with converting those summaries into those characters' voices tomorrow. So I've been finding a lot of different uses for potential for our students to use with that. But the tactile map is is probably one of the first in the UC system. And I'm really proud to be the one to bring it back on bring it onto campus and make improvements to show some of our computer science students, hey, we can 3D print maps now.
So I threw a link in chat for folks to the library's maps in case anyone was curious about what Matt's been mentioning about how our maps are fairly plain. I think possibly because they were originally intended to be printed on like a 4-fold piece of paper. So they're not very large. So simple is better in that case, but on the website, they look very uninformative. So.
Well, even the colors here are a big improvement over the black and white paper versions we distribute, so we can see what's possible.
You know what? I have an idea.
Yeah.
We can submit some of these through our pictures in a flash and provide you tactile capabilities of the library. Would that be of interest?
You know, we're in such a bureaucracy, Josh. This is probably going to intersect with levels of departments. I think this is part of a larger discussion about how this technology and goals and whatnot comes together. But yeah, definitely something to keep in mind.
Well, I'm looking at what you have here. I would probably just convert all the blue outlines into black, submit it through pictures in the flash, and then we could braille the letters on here. Well, okay. The IET computer rooms and university writing programs not going to fit very well in braille. I don't know if any of you realize how much braille takes up. So remember that movie, The Book of Eli, with Denzel Washington, and he was supposed to be carrying around a brailled version of the Bible. Realistically, that was maybe the first chapter of Genesis. Braille takes up a lot of room. for a whole, if you go inside of the Shields Library and go inside of the cat lab, which is located in the very back of Shields Library in the right-hand side, you'll see that we have a whole set of encyclopedias up there. And you'll see that it takes up a lot more room. Brailled encyclopedias take up a lot more room than the printed encyclopedias. Yes.
Yeah, did not know that, but I have, now that you mentioned it, I recall looking at room numbers and seeing the braille underneath, and the braille is a lot more extensive than just the letters. So I can see what that trend would be.
Well, I also had a concern about brailing buildings on campus because we have a lot of buildings that start off with HA. And I didn't want to laugh people off our map. So that's another kind of reasons why I wanted to kind of move over to an audio structure.
Well, I think it's great to know that we have such a deliverable already, just from what you mentioned, but there's so many possibilities here. We're probably going to have to just sort of converse about this and just sort things out. But helpful to know all this. So thanks for the suggestion.
Yes, well, that's what we're here for, to help enlighten and provide our expertise if needed and wanted.
Yeah, I think that that's helpful to know, because like right now, in particular, the library is going through a new process of working through some policies and things like that. And I think that some of the stuff that Matt has encountered and some of the expertise we have in the library could probably come together and make it a more accessible space for everyone and help people find things in general. I know it's challenging for everyone, myself included some days. So I think we could do better.
I don't know if you guys know this, but we have some tools already available on campus.
Okay.
For instance, we have Census Access, which will automatically convert your inaccessible documents into Word, audio, or Braille files on the fly. So this is, and it's a link, it's a web link that it's a iframe that you can embed on the library website if you want to. And if you submit clean articles to it, it does very good on the output and the export. If you submit written up documents to it, it's going to be pretty bad. But we also have all sorts of tools, like, I don't know if you realize this, the Cat Lab actually has ergonomic equipment inside of it, and it has all of the assistive technology that we have here on UC Davis installed over there. So we have one computer with Dragon, we have Apple with Dictate and voice control, we have Claro Read installed on both the Mac and PC computers, we have scanners over there, we have screen readers, so we have JAWS, NVDA for PC, and VoiceOver for Mac. If you ever want a demonstration, I can definitely provide any of those demonstrations for you. So this is all available to the campus community, whether it's students, faculty, or staff. And I'm making a lot of our assistive technologies available for faculty and staff. So we're looking to improve the work life even for staff and employees.
That's great. And Josh, I can tell you where this intersects with the library in one respect. So we did actually have a computer lab that was devoted to assistive technology here at the library some time ago. And I made use of the VHS player, but it was like all different kinds of technology was available there. And then that somehow got drawn down and removed. And that room has now been replaced as our scholarly communications office. Okay, anyway, that's disappeared. And I'm not exactly sure what kind of level of commitment we have to assistive technology now, but
if you go to any computer lab, everything that was installed on those computers is now available on any campus computer lab. Some of those machines actually were moved over to the SDC and in order to open up the room for additional space, I guess, for your scholars program.
Yeah, that must have been it.
But no, with the exception of Dragon, you can find any of our software on any campus lab computer.
Okay, yeah, that was all under the purview of access services, which is a totally different department than data lab. So this is the kind of coordination we're gonna have to work on, but all good to know.
Yeah, I think it's also an indication that siloing things can be challenging when you have topics that cross multiple potential departments, but that's okay. I'm willing to go ask questions and you know,
Well,
annoy people a bit if I need to, to find out what happened to some of the stuff.
please reach out because I already know everybody we need to contact. So
Great. Perfect.
PRA, ISO, yeah, we can help get those passed through a little bit quicker. Are there aspects of this that can be incorporated into OpenStreetMap? What is OpenStreetMap?
So, oh, go ahead, Naomi. I just saw you unmute.
Oh, no, it's just, I don't know. When I go to talks like this that are so interesting, I don't always know how to connect the dots. I think of things like this community-based mapping that's open to everyone. Can we put tags on everything that make it easier to understand buildings in the community and outside the greater area? I might be on a totally wild tangent. Maybe Michelle or Alex can help me out.
Yeah, so OpenStreetMap, just to, Josh, give you a little bit more detail, is it's community source map data. You can think of it like when you go to Google Maps and you can see all the things. It's similar data that's contributed by users. So if there's something missing, it's like Wikipedia, we can add it, or we can update things. If a business has moved, we can move it, we can delete it. If it's gone, we can add new ones, we can add new streets, we can put temporary closures and stuff like that. So it's accessible to everybody. And there's levels of information that are associated with each piece of information that people put on there. So
Yeah, because is this the map that actually allows you to put angles on each one of the streets?
potentially, if there's a slot for that.
I know there was a map that was actually doing that you could list the degree in streets. I know some of our mobility impaired users were using that so that way they wouldn't wear down their the motors on their wheelchairs.
Oh, like the slope of the street.
Mhm.
Oh, that's a good question. Alex, do you know the answer to that? I see links getting put in there.
Thank you. So I see a
I've been
map for
frantically searching the internet to figure it out.
there is one, I'm forgetting the name of it, but they actually had different colors on the streets, and the red
Yeah.
were the ones that my wheelchairs with motorized that were motorized were just avoiding because it was like over 15 degrees. I think it was actually over 20 degrees of a slope, which yeah, that can
So
get
I think
real tough.
OpenStreetMap supports that kind of accessibility tracking. This post that I just found talks about something called wheel map, which is a wheelchair specific flavor of OpenStreetMap. So like once the data is there, different people can actually take the same database of all the map stuff and choose to focus and highlight the things that are important to their particular user set. So you can render hundreds or thousands of different kinds of maps out of the same data. And then Naomi, for you, it looks like further down, there is a German university that's doing indoor mapping related to OpenStreetMap tags, which seems to relate more to this kind of mapping with tactile overlays.
Yeah, and I don't know if I don't know where I was going with my question, but I was thinking like, is there a tag to put on there that would be more useful? Like if you're ingesting this and making a map, would it be helpful to add? I don't know.
It does seem that those things exist. Yeah, keep reading that blog post. There's something called Tactile Mapper on there.
Cool.
Yeah,
Touch
that
mapper.
one's because what it does is it provides you a grid line of all the different streets, and then maybe just does a really quick character at the top or on the sides of what each one of the streets are. It can become confusing really quickly.
Yeah, this actually
Really
looks like it's
quickly.
a 3D printing of an OpenStreetMap data set.
Oh, that one. Yes, that one's cluttered. That was one of my wanted to do, but all the buildings were so close. Yeah. But the good news is soon we'll be able to 3D print out everything. I just need to reduce the time it takes to 3D print some of these contents, because anything over 2 inches becomes really timely to 3D print. And at 2 inches, if I'm filling a complete size of one of my 3D printers, that's probably a couple of hours worth of work. I've actually 3D printed out accessible door handles. So door handles that you can 3D print and screw on top of the handles to make your doorways more accessible. Printing 12 of those took 72 hours. Yeah. The same amount of time it would have taken me to do the Mandalorian helmet, which is much bigger.
Scale is important when you're talking about maps, right? Mandalorian helmet for scale.
Well, you couldn't picture the size of some of these accessible door handles, but you can imagine the size of Mandalorian helmet. Yeah.
Well, Joshua, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about like the kinds of services that your team and other groups on campus provide that us, as I think we're mostly researchers and staff who are related to research here today. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about like the kinds of services you provide and the kinds of things on campus that we should know about as researchers who maybe don't know about these things. Like what's the primer?
Oh, great. So yes, I work very closely with DMS, so Disability Management Services. So if you're looking to be accommodated for certain with certain types of technology, I'm usually the person that they pull in to talk with. So we can help with organization, software, text to speech, dictation. What else? I've been helping a lot of instructors trying to look for new ways of teaching instead of writing on the whiteboard. I was looking at the LightScribe Smart Pen, but also at things like Otter, which transcribes everything that's being said. What else? Well, just basically finding technology solutions to accommodate users in need. And basically, I try and fit the technology to what you need instead of shoehorning you into a technology that we have, because there's thousands of technology available out there now to make our lives easier. So if you're getting hurt, needing of an accommodation, you would probably reach out to Disability Management Services, and then they would rope me in to help you with the technology setup. I usually help with demos, different types of installation and setups. So we do quite a bit of different types of services or capabilities over here. Like here is a small list of some of the technologies I have played with over the years. So as you can see, yes, it's a really small list. But each one of these, they're colored to indicate what operating systems they work on. So that way, if you tell me what operating system you work on, I know which ones to avoid. Inside of it, it gives a description of what these tools can do, as well as links of how to use it. I have my workflow of how I work with my users. So for like note taking, I have 6 different ways that you could potentially take notes and different suggested apps for each one of those, just like e-reading. We have different use cases as well as different suggestions inside of here. Hearing aids, different kind of deaf and hard of hearing services. Definitely have a lot of those resources as well. Organization seems to be one of the newer requests coming in. So we've been working quite a bit on that one. Then we also have automated tools that we're looking at. So we have census access, as I said before, for automated document conversion. Those will convert images over into well, accessible formats. Now, we also have 5 technologies that we have contracted through UCOP to make licensing a little bit easier. So we have JAWS for a screen reader, which is for our blind and low vision users. We also have Zoom text for our low vision users, but we also have other options of magnification. We have captive voice for text to speech, which is an AI kind of tool that will read content out loud to you and give students kind of quiz questions to see if they're retaining what they're reading. We also have Kurzweil, which is a text-to-speech tool that is just reading content out loud to our users. And we also have Glean, which is a note-taking tool. What it does is it allows users to highlight audio of interest to take notes in a different way. And we also have Otter as a note-taking service and organizational tool, which transcribes everything that's being said, automates some of the notes, and will create a to-do list based off of things that you mark that you need to get done. So, and I like showing this page because I like to remind people it's not always about blindness. So here is a demonstration of dyslexia. And this is what I like sharing with my some of my instructors who have a lot of quizzes. And I say, you have 30 seconds to read this, and you have to answer that blue word. What's that blue word? Can anybody read it out loud? And then to read it, a friend who has dyslexia describes to me how she experiences reading. She can read, but it takes a lot of concentration and letters seems to jump around. I remember reading about, I see somebody has answered something in the chat. Oh, sure. Copy, and I'll share the link. And the word is typoglycemia. It's how you view letters, the ability to read letters even though they're scrambled. But if I didn't know that word, as a dyslexic student, multiple choice quizzes are like not something I'd want to be not something I'd want to do, especially in science, especially when all 5 of those questions are answers and maybe slight variations of that. So yes, we even have text-to-speech to address this. This is what we have this for. Yes, it can be very disorientating. Now, this is an extreme version of it, dyslexia for most of my users. So when they take down to answer a question or take a note and look back up, oh, it's a new page. And you notice this is a program, this is JavaScript. So it's actually, you notice the first and last letters never change. That's a limitation of the code. That is not what dyslexia experiences. Sometimes those can still switch around, but it's not just within the word, they can also switch up and down in the sentences. So, any other questions? Yes, it can be quite frustrating to read sometimes, which is the reason why we provide all these different types of technologies. So that way they can read just as fast as anybody else.
This is really helpful to know about the tools that that you have access to and things you can help us with too. Does anybody else have questions about this kind of stuff, or the tactile map, or other tools, other accessibility things?
I have drop-in hours on the first Tuesday of the month. If you're wanting to maybe stop by, ask questions. hey, I have a need for this and you want to challenge me? I accept all challenges, and I love coming up with new ways of learning new things. And you are right, Jay Lee, starting to make me think that one of the large challenges with access is educating others on the difficulties experienced. I have different ways of showing autistic experiences, as you saw with dyslexic. I do know of some things to play around with to show you some of the limitations of deafness in one ear and maybe not in the other. So there's different things that you can simulate, but I don't like simulating it so much because people sometimes go, wow, that was an experience. I'm glad I don't have to experience that again. And that's not the kind of result I want to get out of these kind of things. Yes, empathy building is kind of needed in some of these. You'd be surprised what we have. I mean, I think I could probably do way more demonstrations in VR than I could in some of these regular experiences. And I know that the Japanese have actually made suits that they make people wear to build empathy towards aging.
I think, at least for me, like seeing, like, for example, the demonstration of what it might be like to be dyslexic in certain ways. I think for me as someone who is, my career is very focused on visuals. You know, we generally make maps and we try to communicate visually, and it is one of those things like you really need to stop and think about, like, how are we communicating with folks who experience the world in different ways. So I think sometimes seeing those demonstrations, like another example is in, at least in QGIS, one of our more popular mapping programs, we can switch back and forth between simulations of different color blindness visuals. So that can help us understand, like, oh, I'm not communicating well to people who maybe don't see red and green the same way I do. So I think sometimes these demonstrations, as we take them with the right kind of perspective, I think sometimes it's helpful just to give us a better perspective and help us understand, you know, that maybe our preferred method of communication is not helpful for everybody. You know, like spend a lot of time thinking about things in a very narrow way, and sometimes we do need to see those demonstrations to help us understand, like, oh, there's more things outside of my narrow perspective.
Well, feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Thanks.
I'm also on the UC Tech Slack as well as the UC Davis Slack. We have accessibility channels in both of those where you can ask questions, and we're really quick to respond. Even if it's not me, there's always somebody that's quick to say, hey, maybe you want to try this out. So we're all kind of feeling like we're working on this together. So, and the way I see it, if you're asking in the Slack channel, you might be helping somebody else out in the future.
Yeah, that's great to know. It's good to know that folks are available. I didn't know about any of this until today, and also, like, I've seen other talks about other folks who work on tactile mapping and stuff like that, and to find out that we have it on our campus was so exciting. So I'm super glad that you were able to come and talk to us today. Do we have any other questions out there in the Zoom room before we wrap up?
Yeah, I see that there's a comment on, like how you showed how something can seem like a really big challenge. Show a map to someone with low vision can be broken down into doable parts. Yes, it's all about breaking it down. So, and digestible as well. So we work with different levels of people, and sometimes we'll take a different approach for different people because it takes a new approach. You might be low tech, mid tech, high tech. I take that into account. I mean, I look at it, sometimes my mom wouldn't work with the same technologies the way that my kids do. So I also take that into account. How would I accommodate somebody who's older, who's low tech? So I take all of these into account when I'm addressing accommodations. So, and I'll put my email inside of the chat in case anybody wants to reach out with any kind of questions for later on, or maybe want to collaborate or join one of the committees, or maybe work on something. I'm always up for it.
Thanks. So I think it looks like we don't have any more questions to ask right now. So I will wrap up our recording and just say thank you so much, Joshua, for joining us today and answering our questions and telling us about not only the tactile map, but the things that you do on campus. And thanks, Matt, for helping arrange this. So I'm just really glad that we had this. So I'll stop the recording, but we'll hang on for a few minutes in case anyone has questions they didn't want to ask on the recording. So again, thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks again, Josh.
Sure. Oh, I forgot. I also have, if anybody's using LibreText textbooks, I built the accessibility checker for inside of that.
Oh, cool.
And it's not a report giver. No, it guides you through what you need to fix. And then once you hit OK, it makes the fixes for you.
Even better. That's awesome.
I don't like reports. You just beat me over the head with what I don't know or what I'm doing wrong. Yeah.
It's nice to get like a list of here's what's going to change and you can just say, yes, please.
That's the way I think. That's the way I think it should be addressed. Because if we can automatically find it, we should be able to automatically fix it.
That's awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and then I'll hang out for a little bit too.